Hello, unique awesome people. I want to talk to you guys today about people pleasers or people pleasing. I have been through a lot of experiences in my life, and there's a common denominator that I'm only recently realizing has been at the core root of a lot of the disheartening, disappointing, unkind, unfulfilling, frustrating, tormenting experiences that we have in relationships that don't work out. I've been following some really cool chicks on Instagram who post a lot about it. Now, some of the times I'm reading things that are like completely unrelated to my experiences, and other times they are. So, when I use the term people pleaser, it's like a big wild world out there of people pleasing. There's a lot of different kinds and a lot of different layers to it, and it's not your fault if you're somebody who people pleases. We grow up in very different environments with different types of parents who have different types of expectations from us and give us love in different ways. And based on, the environment we, grow up around, and we're literally we're like a flower growing in this particular type of soil with this particular type of fertilizers, right? Like we all grow in a very unique way. So the idea that maybe you are a people pleaser and you don't realize it, or maybe you do, it's not, I'm not sitting here saying like, oh, you're wrong and you're bad and you're terrible. Like that's not my purpose for this. But there comes a time where you definitely need to start looking at yourself and saying like, am I taking accountability for my actions? Do I recognize that my people pleasing is disrupting the people that I care about, right? And it's like, especially when you're having multiple relationships, sometimes you can get yourself into a situation as a people pleaser where you're like just drowning in partners. I've talked about polysaturated in another video, but also just the many layers of disappointment and discomfort you can find yourself in when you're making choices to appease other people instead of yourself. Well, what happens when you start figuring out how to kind of grow out of people pleasing and you start putting down healthy boundaries and you kind of miss the punch on doing it in a respectful, caring, nurturing manner? Because why would you ever want to treat your partners or potential partners with any less courtesy and regard and respect than that, right? It's kind of like when somebody is going to go and, jump into a pool for their first time because they're just like scared and they're like, oh, I've been wanting to do this for so long, I've been wanting to do this for so long, I've been wanting to do this, I'm just gonna jump. And Geronimo, you're not necessarily going to do it in the most graceful way. And I think that's the main message that I wanted to get out in this video, is that the way you treat other people really matters. And if you decide that maybe you are struggling with people pleasing, and that you want to make some changes in your life and not continue to put yourself in a taxing, exhausting, depleted place, because as a people pleaser, you can get to a place where you have nothing left to give and you feel so utterly drained and consumed by everyone else's needs. It's a very unhealthy way to live. You can get to a place where you just like pump the brakes so hard because you've let it go so far that you really disrespect and hurt the people close to you. It's never about can somebody relate to, respect, and understand the healthy boundary that you put up. It's more about how did you do it? Did you put your healthy boundary up in a kind, considerate, nurturing way? Because if you did and that person still has their feelings hurt, or they're uncomfortable because of it, or there's some discomfort they experience, that's okay. But if you do it in a way where you're being kind of like ruthless and desperate about it because you haven't figured out how to regulate your emotions well, then you can really, really hurt people close to you and damage the love you might have already had, or the potential to rekindle in the future. And I think that that's a lesson that's very hard for a people pleaser to take on, because often the way you grow up, you're probably used to not taking accountability for things. So, unless you take a course on how to embrace accountability, how can you possibly be good at it, other than sporadically, kind of desperately trying to do it and then maybe not doing it in the best way possible. And now, so for people who are experiencing people pleasers, that can be very confusing and misleading and confrontational. And, so I thought it would be important to do this video for you as well, so that you can realize that, if you were treated in a way that was unkind and made you feel insecure or made you question the sincerity of someone or the experience that you had, made you regret or have, second guesses about, maybe pursuing that person in the future, it's going to be really important for you to do some research and learn about people pleasing, so that you can understand why someone's treating you in a way that makes you sad or maybe even angry, because that person might not even know they're doing it to you, as opposed to maybe you perceiving it as, an intentional disrespect. So it's very, very important to do research on how to break people pleasing patterns and behaviors, and how to learn how to take accountability. Those are all keywords that you can research on YouTube to do some research yourself. And then also, as the person who's been experiencing it, how to have healthy boundaries and how to have some standards and expectations, and how to take space and say, it's not okay to treat me like this. I do deserve better. So it's important to do some research so that you can see if you're in a situation surrounded by a people pleaser or multiple people pleasers. It can be a very unhealthy situation, and I think polyamory probably does appeal in some ways, because where a people pleaser feels they fall short, they feel good that someone else can maybe fulfill or pick up that area in their loved ones' lives where they have needs that they feel too much pressure to be able to meet. But at the same time, if you haven't mastered and regulated your own emotions, and you don't comprehend accountability in full, then having multiple relationships is a bloody disaster. So that's why I thought this video would be really worth while putting out. In no way do I consider myself an expert. I am a huge amateur, just kind of discovering this for myself right now and rationalizing previous experiences that I had. So I'm doing a lot of my own research on Instagram and on YouTube with the hashtag people pleasing, and I recommend that you do it as well, because even if you feel maybe you haven't experienced that before, I bet if you do some research, you will discover that in fact maybe you are a people pleaser, or that you have loved one before. And as I said, everyone can do better and rewire their minds and grow and become healthier people. If someone came from, a previous relationship or a family dynamic growing up that, that hurt them in some way, that, led them to become a people pleaser, it's not their fault. And if we love them, we should support them and help them figure out, how to be that person that they should have been, and that they would have been if they weren't met with the kind of love that in return creates people pleasing, unfortunately. And my heart aches for people who feel like that, because that's not something that I struggle with these days, but I do recall in my younger years that was something like I had to live through and figure out. So maybe it's a part of being young. What do I know? Leave your comments below, please, if you have anything to share on the subject, because I think it's important that we all share minds and build some community on these interesting subjects. My name is Chelsea Tara. Thank you for watching. If you like my video, please subscribe, and hopefully the algorithms will help me get out to a broader audience. Bye. Have a great day.